Now with us this morning to review the papers are writer and academic Mo Lovett and broadcaster Pete Price. Hi to you both again. I think we're kicking off with you, Mo, aren't we? You've pulled out this story from the Daily Mail, an interview that Theresa May gave to Radio 4. It was a fascinating interview yesterday, actually. I don't know if you heard it. But certainly she's confident that Rishi Sunak may be able to close this enormous poll gap with Labour.
Yeah, well, I thought we hadn't had very much party politics this morning, so we'd focus in on this interview that, as you say, Theresa May gave yesterday. She claims that Rishi Sunak is rebuilding trust and that there is time for the Tories to turn it around and win the next general election. Now, this is against the backdrop of polls suggesting that the Labour Party have a 20-point lead at the moment, and have had a fairly substantial lead for the last 6 months, as far as I can remember. Sir John Curtis, our election guru that we all know and love, has said Tory support has really plummeted in the wake of kind of unforced errors and also the economic backdrop that we've been talking about all morning. So I think it's an interesting one. I mean, the thing, obviously, is about rallying the troops, isn't it? And I think the one thing I always think about elections is that you should never, ever take the electorate for granted. No matter what the polls say, people will make their mind up on the day. They should never be taken for granted. But what I would hate is for the parties to either kind of admit defeat or to kind of be complacent about a win, and for people not to listen to the electorate. I mean, that's one of the things that I think we've had sort of quite a slovenly political class of late that aren't really kind of tackling some of the problems we face in society. So although it might be about rallying the troops, I do think it's good not to be complacent about what the outcome of the next general election might be. I loved in this little piece in the Mail, the very last paragraph, it says Nadine Dorries has suggested if the Tory numbers keep slipping, Boris Johnson will be back in number 10. Now that just made me smile. I'll let viewers make of it what they think, but I thought that was quite a funny little final paragraph.
Gosh, more likely to be back in number 10 or in the jungle, who knows, right? Pete, you pulled out this story on the front page of The Guardian, which frankly I found quite shocking when I was reading it this morning, that student homelessness is rising. It says here that not since the 1970s have they seen anything like this, when students were sleeping in sports halls and cars. This is all very depressing, isn't it?
It is depressing, but I'm really surprised at the story. It says that the purpose-built student accommodation is not expanding the way it was. Now, if they came to Liverpool, you've never seen so much accommodation in your life. I have never seen high-rise blocks being put up so fast, and it's all a student accommodation. We're a big student city anyway, so I think that's really exciting. But on the private sector, the landlords are changing their minds and not using students like they used to. Also, the rules and regulations are making it more difficult. But there's a bigger problem for these people, these lovely students who are bringing so much money into our cities, is they're getting substantial bills for their electricity on top of their rents, and they are struggling to keep warm and they've got to be warm when they're doing their work, but they're having big problems. But I'm surprised that they're saying that this problem is the biggest problem since 1970. It doesn't make sense to me, because Liverpool is absolutely packed with a student accommodation.
It's really interesting, isn't it? But it's whether they can afford it, I suppose, isn't it?
Oh, no, they can't afford it. That's the sad thing. But you see, a couple of my friends, I'm going to get castigated for this, a couple of my friends' kids are students, but they've got part-time jobs as well because they want to make it work.
Yeah, well, certainly I always had a job when I was at university, and it's something that a lot of students do have to do, isn't it? Mo, to this story that you've pulled out from The Times today, saying that stay-at-home fathers are up 34% since the pandemic. 1 in 9 full-time parents are now men. It's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, it is interesting. I think it's one of those things that, you know, pandemics change societies, don't they? They change attitudes, and this is one of those stories, or at least accelerate underlying trends in society. So, yeah, as you say, 1 in 9 full-time parents now, so that's parents who don't work but are full-time parents, are fathers now, and that's kind of compared to 1 in 14 back in 2019, whereas mothers, you know, full-time mums who don't work, and that's fallen from 1.3 million to 1.2 million in the same period. I mean, the numbers are sort of 140,000 compared to 1.2 million. So you can see that, you know, stay-at-home parenting is still the majority women doing that. I mean, the report, it says, itself says that this is, you know, this is due to, it's a good thing for equity and pay, because it means that women are able to go out and earn more. I think it's interesting because one thing the report doesn't talk about is what type of work and the changes of work. I mean, we knew in the pandemic that, you know, it was mostly the middle class that could stay at home with a computer-based job, whereas manual workers had to go out and be in society. So that's a different kind of quality of work, whether you're out and using manual labour and or you're behind a computer. So it doesn't really cut across whether or not it has affected pay and conditions for women in the workplace. But I just think it's a very interesting kind of sign of the times in the way attitudes are changing. I mean, there's one father who said if he hadn't worked from home during the pandemic, if he'd been in the office, it may never have occurred to him that he could be a stay-at-home father, and then he's taken that decision. So, yeah, as you say, quite interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. Certainly a lot of fathers who used to travel a lot for work really enjoyed that time at home, seeing their children grow up during the pandemic. Certainly it was eye-opening for a lot of people, wasn't it? Now, this story that you pulled out from the Eye, Pete, COVID restrictions coming back to care homes. This is all quite sad, isn't it?
It's absolutely incensed me, this story. It's not just COVID, it's the flu, it's vomiting bugs. They're talking about shutting down for visitors. When we had the pandemic, care homes were shut down, people died, they were prisoners in those. I understand that the care homes had to help them, but they were prisoners. To do it again, these people are in their last part of their life. They need some sort of relationship, some sort of contact with people they love, and the idea that care homes could close down again through the winter, I understand the problems they've got, but they've got to work harder to keep these problems at bay, because these people are prisoners in their homes and they're dying, and it was dreadful in the pandemic. So many people didn't say goodbye to their loved ones. This is an awful story, and it's got to be addressed.
Yeah, certainly not good news for so many families. A quick thought from you, Mo, before we go. The sun, snow go for UK. It was a white Christmas official.
Officially, we had a white Christmas, and it used to be the case that if a snowflake fell on the Met Office in London on Christmas Day, it would be a white crisp. But now, in an era of dumbing down, it can be anywhere in the UK, and it can be any time within the 24 hours of Christmas Day. So yes, although it was too warm in England and Wales, there were parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland.
Mo, Pete, we'll see you again in the next hour. Thank you so much. And we'll have more on all our top stories at the top of the hour. Stay with us.